G'day. Was that the best British Grand Prix you've ever seen? Huge crowds, surprise podium, Hollywood star power, and a race that provided plenty of excitement. Make no mistake, it was a super weekend, and for a behind-the-scenes look at everything that happened in the paddock, stick around. First up, let's talk about the Hollywood star power. Brad Pitt. He was there every day of the 4 days. Huge film crews along with him, plenty of media excitement around, and we learnt his character's name for the movie. It is indeed Sonny Hayes, a very American name, many of you said. And this post here on my Instagram page was my most popular of the weekend. Just the front of the garage. And where is that garage situated? Well, it's in pit lane, obviously, amongst all the other teams. And I actually went to one end of the paddock, didn't see it there, went to the other end, thinking it would be at one end or the other end. It wasn't. It was smack bang in the middle between Ferrari and Mercedes. Was he on track? Yes, he was on track. But was he driving a car? Well, we're not quite sure. I don't think he was. But certainly he was on the grid for the national anthem. Yes, he stood with the F1 drivers when the national anthem was played. Then he and his co-star, Damson Idris, actually led the whole F1 field from the front of the grid to the back of the grid. That was all for video, and I think you're going to see me in the movie because there was only one take. A lot of the other stuff that they were doing was 2 and 4 and 10 takes. They had one chance to get it right, and they did, and that's me there. And I can tell you, I had no idea this was happening. Pure fluke that I was in the right place at the right time. But I can tell you that I'll be doing a whole separate video on the making of Apex coming up in the next week or so. So make sure you're subscribed and you'll get notified when it pops up. Next up, let's talk the winner. And of course, Red Bull absolutely dominating. Max Verstappen taking another win. He is a whirlwind, isn't he? Sergio Perez not doing a bad job, getting back to 6th position. But the real story, of course, was Lando Norris. I couldn't believe the roar in Q1 when he went to the top. I must admit, I was pretty excited too. I think it's great for the sport that we have McLaren dominating. Well, if you take Max out of the equation. So Oscar, a great effort as well. I spoke to his dad on Sunday and he said he hasn't been so nervous since Oscar was on the verge of winning his last title, which was in F2. Lando, I asked him whether he slept well on Saturday night. He said yes, mega was his response to that. But Lando is just so mighty popular, especially when it comes to his home race here in Silverstone. And on most of the mornings, he would come in and sign autographs for about 20 minutes and pose for selfies with a crowd waiting out the front. If you're wondering how to actually meet these drivers, and this is a little bit like the Melbourne Walk, but it's only open to those who have an inner circuit ticket, I understand. And those people would arrive at the front gates at 4:30 a.m. so that they could be let in at 6 and get a prime position. And some of them would stay till the last driver left. And often they're the ones that are rewarded because there's only a few people out there and you're a driver coming out, you don't mind stopping. Unfortunately, someone like a Lewis just cannot stop for very long because it becomes unmanageable for his security. Certainly, Lando was thrilled with his second place effort, and realistically he knew that unless Max had a big problem with his car or made a big mistake, and that's something that Max doesn't do very often, he was never going to beat Max. So a second was magnificent. He had his family there with him, except Mum Siska was not there, but Sister Siska was, along with Sister Flo, Dad Adam, and even his grandfather was on the grid with Adam. After the race, I hung around and waited with him for quite a while, and he eventually came back from the media interviews and was all smiles. And then, of course, there was a celebration out the front of McLaren, although they were very late opening the champagne and spraying it. So consequently, I think a bit more practice is required. And if they keep going well this season, that practice will come. Oscar, on the other hand, I saw him when he finished the race, and he was a little bit sad. I know it's not a bad thing to come fourth if you're a rookie, but I think he really thought he was a good chance of coming third. Unfortunately, the circumstances didn't work out with that safety car. Other stories that caught my eye on the weekend, certainly this one, Cara Delavigne came under a little bit of fire from a lot of F1 supporters for not talking to Martin Brundle on the grid. About 80% of the comments were negative, saying that she was a guest and perhaps should have talked to Martin. It was no big deal. She claimed that she was told not to speak to him by an F1 representative, which I can only think is a team member. But of course, she's not obliged to talk to the media, and unfortunately for her, it has come across as a bit of a negative. But people in F1 move on quickly. Oh, I want to introduce you to this young lady. Her name is Maisie, and I know that because she stood at the swipe gates, and virtually every driver that came in, she was very polite, and she'd walk up to them and say, "Would you like a sweet?" And I thought, what a great offering that was. And a lot of the drivers stopped and chat with her, including team principals too. Franz Tost here stopped for a good minute, I'd say, and wrote her this lovely note in her autograph book. Speaking of other good characters, I want to introduce you to this fella, and I don't know his name, but I did get told by a number of people that he is the happiest man on earth. He stood at a roundabout and virtually waved and smiled at every single person that came past inside the track. I managed to see him for a brief moment from a distance on race day, and he was so happy to have his photo taken. So I take my hat off to this gentleman. We should all be this happy. One man who wasn't happy was Pierre Gasly on Sunday. Of course, he got bundled out of the race. Lance Stroll had an incident with him. And you might have seen Lance's comment where he said he would take it up with Pierre in the car park. And as I was walking out, Pierre and I were chatting, and he did mention that because I hadn't heard it at the time. And as he got into the car, he gave me the put your dukes up pose, which I thought was quite a bit of fun. But I'm not sure that they've addressed the issue yet, and I think it'll probably just get swept under the carpet. I was surprised and delighted to see a couple of old faces in the paddock, one being Britta Ruska, who manages Sebastian Vettel. She couldn't get very far at all before she was stopped and talked to people down that paddock, and I believe she's here because Seb is driving at Goodwood on the weekend, and she's scoping it all out for him. And the other one was Mattia Binotto, ex-Ferrari boss, back in the paddock and enjoying things in casual gear. Now, you might remember that last week on Instagram I put up a poll, who's your favourite F1 garage crew member? I had Alessandro from Ferrari up against Callum Nicholas from Red Bull, and it was a very tight contest with Alessandro winning by just a couple of percent. This week he's up against Tom Mason from Mercedes. Now behind me you can probably see a couple of signed prints. Well, one's signed and one's a giveaway. I did a signed print offering with both Yuki Tsunoda here, and as you can see, that one is no good because unfortunately, look, we smudged it, but we went and fixed those up. And we also did a signed print signing with Valtteri Bottas. And those are still available at kimillman.com, individually numbered, and you get a pic of the driver signing your individual print for irrefutable proof of authenticity. I photographed the third practice session from pit lane in Silverstone. Now, pit lane is a very wide pit lane, and I can tell you that there was a lot of film crew out there for the Apex movie. I'll go into more detail about their operations in that video about the movie. But while I was there, I was down the end where McLaren was. Lando pulls out of the garage, takes off, and then I notice a mechanic comes racing out. Lando stopped maybe 80 metres down the pit lane, and this mechanic is sprinting towards the car. So what happened? Well, this particular item here was left on the back of the car. Now, this is a device that sucks air from the exhaust, takes it through one like a silver metal air conditioning duct, and gets rid of that exhaust. However, somebody did not detach it from the car, and as a result, Lando went out with that on the back of the car. The metal piping stayed in the garage, and I believe the FIA were looking at that because apparently crew can't go and retrieve stuff. That has to be the marshals. What were the drivers driving to the track? Well, two of them drove the most remarkable sports cars I have ever seen, and you'll find out more about that in my drivers drove video, but I can tell you they were both from McLaren. Let me quickly run through some remarkable watches that I saw. This is my watches of the Paddock Post gallery, along with my shoes of the Paddock, some marvellous ones there, and handbags, plenty on offer over the 4 days. Wives, girlfriends, family, who do we have? I've already mentioned Lando's family. Let's move on to George Russell. His girlfriend Carmen was there, along with his mum and dad, Stephen with a PH, and Alison with one L. Lewis Hamilton's dad, Anthony, was in attendance. Pierre Gasly's girlfriend joined him at Silverstone. This is Kika. Alex Albon was joined by Lily, and his sister and his mother were also there. Another Lily there was Oscar Piastri's girlfriend, along with his dad, Chris. And finally, Charles Leclerc's girlfriend, Alexandra, was in attendance. Callum Ilott, now racing Indy cars, but did have hopes of racing in F1, was at the track this weekend with his girlfriend, Caterina Massetti-Zanini, who used to go out with Pierre Gasly. Now, Lewis Hamilton, was his girlfriend there? We don't even know if he has a girlfriend. Although some people link him with Shakira, but I think that was more just a dinner invitation with a whole host of people back in Spain. But who knows, that's his business. Let's talk about Lewis's dog, though. Roscoe, very popular. Came in on a couple of the days. Lewis actually had to carry the little fella up the stairs because he's not too good with that sort of thing. And on one day he came in with his minder and was very much the star of a whole host of media attention. And in the Mercedes motorhome, there is a bowl for Roscoe, although as you can see here, they're missing an E off his name. And then we have celebrities. There were numerous celebrities on the grid, many of which I didn't see, but I heard about. But let's look at the ones that I did see. We had Rhys James, a footballer from the UK. Jeremy Clarkson was there with his partner Lisa. They were a guest of Alpine. Liam Payne, didn't know him, but of course he is from One Direction, I've since found out. I do know Pep Guardiola. He was there with Mercedes, even posed with a few of the crew at the end of the day. And leaving the paddock, he and Toto shared a car, and it was a lot easier for the pair to take scooters to get out, saving them so much time having to stop for every man and his dog for a selfie or an autograph. Football fans will recognise this fellow. This is Paulo Dybala. We had one of the sons of a football great with us on the grid. That's Romeo Beckham. Gordon Ramsay was there. This is his third race in a row. A triple header for Gordon. Paddy the Baddy, UFC fighter. Jackie Stewart, of course, was there, and he's done a signed print deal with me, and there are 20 left. You can see them at kimellman.com. Richard Ashcroft, some of you might know him, lead singer from The Verve, and Grime MC Skepta. Here's a picture of Carlos Sainz. He arrived at the track in quite a beautiful Ferrari and was wearing Calvin Klein underwear. Rest assured, there were a lot of people at this race, and I've got to say that the traffic was pretty darn good. I know I come in very early and I leave late, but in the past I've had some horrendous waits just trying to get out of the circuit. And to that end, I can tell you that most of the drivers stay inside the circuit at motorhomes. Now obviously that means that they've got a much shorter trip. They're already inside the track. Many take scooters from their motorhomes to the paddock. Others actually drive, and it's only a kilometre or so, and most of the road is lined by fans hoping to catch a glimpse of their favourite driver. Well done to the BRDC for putting on such a great event. If you've enjoyed this video, please, could you do me a favour and hit the like button? And remember to subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos. Oh, and I've got a couple of great competitions coming up with prizes worth more than $10,000 US. And to be in it, you must be a follower of my Instagram page. So if you're not following me on Instagram, you cannot win those prizes. And trust me, you'll want to win both of them. If you've seen an image of mine that you like, most of them are up at prostarpics.com. You'll find a whole range of F1 photo books, including the latest British GP race at kimellman.com, where you'll find a whole host of these signed prints, merchandise and wall art, and for my best images live from the track and all during the week, go to Instagram and search my name, Kim Illman. It's not Kyle Illman. I get that so often at the track. And last but not least, thanks for watching and stay passionate. Shut up, shut up, shut up.